This week, Catholic bishops are meeting in Baltimore to discuss the priest sex abuse crisis in the American church and will vote on measures to hold themselves accountable. Throughout the church, the Vatican has put in place new rules on reporting abuse. The most concrete steps the Vatican has taken to counter the crisis. Most of the attention has focused on child victims, but as special correspondent Christopher Livesay reports from the Vatican, now, in the Me Too era, there's a growing chorus of nuns speaking out as survivors of abuse as well.
They're known as Brides of Christ, revered for their quiet service, not for speaking out. But that's beginning to change.
Well, I joined the convent in 2003, and I was raped in 2008.
Raped, she says, by a priest. A devout Catholic from Germany, Doris Wagner was 24 years old, living and working at this religious community just outside the Vatican.
And he came into the room, closed the door behind him, was sitting on my right hand on the sofa, and he just started to undress me.
When she told her superiors, she says the priest went unpunished, allowing him to rape her again and again.
But this whole time, the perpetrator was still living in the same... So you had to actually see your rapist...
Every day.
Every day.
He was preaching in the chapel. He was giving me Holy Communion. He was sitting at breakfast, at lunch, at dinner at the same table. I was ironing his shirts.
Story after story like Wagner's is reaching a crescendo. In India, a bishop currently faces charges for repeatedly raping a former Mother Superior. And a recent investigation by the Associated Press found cases of abuse across 4 continents. Now, the Vatican can no longer ignore the scandal. This year, Pope Francis made a shocking admission and acknowledged what had been a long-standing dirty secret of the Roman Catholic Church, that some priests had been sexually abusing nuns. It was a stain they could keep under wraps. That is, until the Me Too movement. Now, religious women are beginning to speak out, and a Nuns Too era has been born. Helping break down that wall of silence was, of all things, a Vatican magazine, Donna Chiesa Mondo, or Women Church World. Its all-women staff included former editor Lucetta Scarafia. She listened to hundreds of stories from nuns, and in February published an article accusing the all-powerful priesthood of not only exploiting them for sex, but first and foremost for their labor.
Dal lavoro più elevato, che è il lavoro.
It happens as high as the Vatican ministries, where women carry out secretarial work and translations, but they can never be promoted, and the men get all the credit. They also exploit nuns as housekeepers. They do all of the cleaning, prepare all of the food without fixed hours, all day, every day. Priests see this almost as their right to take advantage of women.
They're not paid for their work. There's no chance of advancement. Some people have likened this mistreatment to slavery. Is that accurate?
That's accurate. Given this habit of servitude, it's easy to understand how it can morph into sexual exploitation.
Doris Wagner says that's what happened to her in Rome.
I was only working in the kitchen, chopping vegetables, cleaning. Anybody who wants to become a nun wants to serve and wants to give herself to God. And that's why it is so easy to abuse nuns, because they are so ready to listen to others who tell them how they are supposed to be. Again and again, I was reproached for not walking right, not looking right, not sitting right, not talking right, because some men in the house had a problem with me.
When you say they had a problem with you...
They felt in a way attracted to us, you know.
And this was your fault?
It was our fault.
She says it was also her fault when she reported the priest's advances to her female superior.
Well, she became furious. She literally jumped on her feet and was shouting at me. And she was very angry with me. And she said, "You are dangerous for him. Leave him alone."
They tell them, keep quiet or our congregation will be persecuted. These women can't even contemplate leaving because they don't have any alternatives. They have no trade, no support group. They've severed ties with their families, so they are forced to endure this abuse that often leads to pregnancy, and the priests or bishops force them to have abortions.
So nuns are forced by the fathers of these children, by priests, to have abortions?
Sì, è una cosa ipocrita.
Yes, and these poor women now have to live with the anguish of having committed a mortal sin. We have many testimonies from nuns who had more than one abortion in this way.
Testimonies that became too much for the Vatican to handle, she says. Soon after they were published, the director of the Vatican newspaper, Andrea Mondo, told her that he would now be sitting in on the editorial meetings of